The judges have come for President Trump's trade policy. A trade court blocked the president's reciprocal tariffs, triggering a potential showdown that could reach the Supreme Court. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Big Money Show. I'm Brian Brenberg, along with my co-hosts Taylor Riggs, Dagan McDowell, Jackie DeAngelis, and with us for not 1, but 2 hours, OLeary Ventures Chairman Kevin OLeary. Welcome, sir.
Woo!
Markets initially rose on news of the court's ruling, but a Trump spokesperson says, quote, "It is not for unelected judges to decide how to address a national emergency." Some now argue the president has lost his biggest leverage on trade talks. Others, like Goldman Sachs, saying not so fast. Trump has plenty of other tools at his disposal. Kevin OLeary, big news. What do you think about this?
3 takeaways. Number 1, he does have plenty of tools, and he used them before and in his first term. Other administrations have used them as well. What has been taken away from him is the shock and awe of just picking a specific country and slamming them with 145% tariffs just for the hell of it. That's not going to work anymore. But more importantly for investors and everybody in the market, and if you're spending CapEx in a domestic company, are tariffs as an issue going away? Absolutely not. How long will it take to negotiate them? Much longer, because now you've got to put in place the appeal process and everything else. But while he is doing this, if you're a negotiating country like India or Canada or Mexico or the EU, you're not dropping your team. You're saying, I know Trump's going to keep coming at me with a different tool, so I might as well just keep going down the road. And I think number 3 on the hit parade of what you got to think about is what's the end game? He's got to get this all wrapped up before the midterms and before we start thinking about midterms, because he doesn't want to lose the majority mandate based on tariffs. Markets, they're back to almost all-time highs. So the market is looking forward saying, I think this whole tariff deal is going to end up in some kind of reciprocal 10%-ish range. That's what they're kind of saying right now, no matter how the volatility plays out. And every time we get another volatile statement or another tweet out of Trump, the impact is less. And so the market's made the assumption that he's doing his Trump-ish kind of negotiation and that we're going to get to a 10% or something like that tariff before the midterm.
So let me stay with markets, Taylor, because they popped into the green on the news of the ruling. I think all 3 major indices now are in the red. So
Nasdaq's close.
does that tell you that markets initially thought, okay, this might kind of be the end of the tariff drama, and now they're realizing, to Kevin's point, if the president wants to do more on tariffs, there's a lot more he can do?
Yeah, I think that's certainly one read, right? We always get the initial excitement, and then when you read through the notes, it say last night's ruling does not apply to Section 301, the 10% tariffs that Trump imposed on China in 2018-2019. Section 232, the 25% tariffs on autos and auto parts. Section 232, the 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum. And then maybe the upcoming tariffs on semiconductors, pharma, copper, lumber, and ships under Section 232. So you do have certainly some exclusions from that, and maybe the market's trying to digest that. Kevin talked a lot about countries still negotiating, and I will go back to our conversation, and Kevin can agree or disagree with me, about that we had yesterday on individual CEOs in companies who I think we shouldn't discount their ability to really manage effectively through this. We'll talk about Nvidia a little bit later on, but these are companies where the loss of tariff revenue for some is a rounding error. If you are best in class in your business, you can get around it. So we also need to look at how I think individual CEOs and management teams are navigating this. And if you are best in class in your field, you're doing it pretty well.
So you mentioned, can I go to you, Dagan, on this?
Yeah, do you want to ask me something?
Well, I wanted to I had a SOT for you, Mary Barra over at GM, because I'm interested in the CEO reactions to this. It strikes me that she's been playing a little political one-step, two-step on this. Let me play it for you and then get your reaction, Dagan.
I can't speak to all the other industries that are facing tariffs, but I can tell you for decades now, it has not been a level playing field for U.S. automakers globally with either tariffs or non-tariff trade barriers. So I think tariffs is one tool that the administration can use to level the playing field. And I also think it's important, maybe I grew up in manufacturing at General Motors, but I think having strong manufacturing capability in this country is also important.
Yes, General Motors would not be in business today if not for the chicken tax, the 25% tariff that has been levied on imports of light trucks since the LBJ administration. So that alone has kept General Motors and Ford and Chrysler in business for roughly 60 years. So yeah, because of tariffs that the United States slapped on exporters into the U.S., you're still in business, barely, thanks to a bailout that GM got that we never got paid back for. I think we are owed $11 billion thereabouts. So Taylor was talking about the big companies, that the tariffs are a rounding error. Well, the tariffs are a stake through the heart of so many small businesses in this country. And this ruling from the International Trade Court is a major win for small businesses because the new Civil Liberties Alliance, it is a nonprofit, nonpartisan group. It's actually conservative by many estimations. Was one of the parties in filing this suit on behalf of a small business owner based in Florida who makes paper planners. And this organization, the New Civil Liberties Alliance that I'm talking about, was also behind the Loper-Bright case, that was filed that overturned the Chevron doctrine in the Supreme Court. So this ruling was not a surprise to so many people who viewed the use of the IEEPA by the Trump administration, this 1970s era law, as being unconstitutional to levy essentially a new tax across every country and every business in this nation. So not a surprise to many of the conservatives who I've been talking to, and they are Trump supporters.
So, Jackie, you're my longest tenured lawyer on the panel here. I look at the ruling, and it strikes me that there could be a battle around the IEEPA on this one.
International Emergency Economic Powers Act. I'm sorry, I should have said that.
Exactly what I was thinking. But there are a lot of tools, legally speaking, that the president could use here that he's used before and haven't been challenged, actually. So I wonder how much it really changes his leverage at the end of the day.
I don't really think it does. Back to Kevin's main point, which was that the shock and awe of the tariffs that were never really real, the big tariffs on that list we like to refer to on Liberation Day, that took its toll to get countries to come to the table. And people didn't know if President Trump was bluffing or not. And that's what's amazing about his negotiation style. But at the end of the day, the temperature check, it all came down with respect to many countries. It probably will come down with China, and it probably will come down with the EU as well. At least it seems like it is right now. So I think that he got the most out of that initial gut punch that he wanted to, and that he doesn't really need these exorbitant tariffs anymore. If we do end up at a baseline tariff of, say, 10% or something like that, I think that's what the market is expecting. Just to dig into the legal aspect of this, because that's fascinating to me, it was the Manhattan-based court, International Trade Court, but they can appeal to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit. That's in Washington, D.C., and ultimately this could go all the way up to the Supreme Court. The International Emergency Economic Powers Act is used during times of unusual, extraordinary threats during a national emergency. Now, he's used emergency powers before, for example, when it comes to immigration, and the courts are challenging him on that as well. I imagine his team is going to see this through, whether they want to use the tariffs or they don't want to use the tariffs, just to be able to make a point that there is executive power in emergencies to make moves like this. And the only thing I'll add, while I feel for the small businesses, And I get that argument. It's that you're never going to please all the people all the time. And so somebody's always going to have a gripe about something, and they have a legitimate gripe, of course, as well. So I think what he's trying to do overall is do what he thinks is best for the country long term to level the playing field, and hope that, you know, if a small business wasn't put out of business by this, if they can endure it, if they can last, that actually things will get better for everybody. I do think that's the point that he's trying
It's
to
a win for all the businesses that don't have the number to the bat phone, though. And the 2 of the 3 judges are conservative, one appointed by Reagan, the other appointed by Trump, the third appointed by Obama. So it'd be hard to argue that this 3-judge panel is biased liberally.
I'm not making that argument. I'm just saying he should. I think his team should challenge it on the Emergency Powers Act.
See, this is the kind of legal analysis I tune in for. Thank you for that. Very good.
Okay.
By the way, I just would say Trump has not left the driver's seat on this issue. Okay, he may have to change lanes. He may have to use other tools, but he has reset the table on trade negotiations, and that is not going to change. And there's nobody around the globe who's saying, "Oh, I can breathe easy now," because this 3-panel judge said.
The debate is also morphing into another issue that kind of emerged in the last 48 hours regarding Nvidia's numbers. I know it's a bit of a tangent, but Nvidia's CEO came out and said, listen, these restrictions on our ability to export our old chips are holding back on $5 billion worth of revenue, but worse, they've lost 40% market share in China to other developers of chips. And he's saying if we don't get back in the game, we're going to lose out to AI development. At the same time, and I didn't know this, and maybe you guys don't know this either, we've lost #1 status for research to China. Beijing Chinese Institute is now ahead of Harvard. And here we are beating up Harvard. That just happened. We are #2 in research. What are we doing? We can't beat up research, particularly in AI. That's crazy.
Says whom?
Yeah.
The Communist Party
By
of
dollars
China?
invested.
The Communist Party of China or Harvard, because both those parties have a vested interest in fudging those numbers.
I get it, but the trend is not your friend because the next guy's German, the one after that is French. You don't get down to MIT until you're the back half of the top 10. We are losing out. We got to keep these people coming into this country and keep them here. We're in a fight of our lives against China on AI, and I smell it coming, and I think we should really focus on it big time.
We got to
disagree with
deploy our research dollars in the best way. I'm not sure today Harvard is necessarily the place where that should happen.